Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Norfolk Countywide Community Safety Scrutiny Sub-Panel. Just go over some general housekeeping before we continue the meeting. This meeting is being held here in person at County Hall and is also being streamed live via the Council's YouTube channel. We're not expecting a fire alarm test during the meeting, but if it does sound, we must evacuate County Hall. And in the event of an emergency, please make your way to the nearest exit and meet at the muster point, which is on the front car park. Moving on to the agenda proper. First item is to receive apologies and details of any substitute members attending, please. Megan.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for absence were received from Councillor Stuart Dark and Councillor Jade Martin, as well as her substitute Councillor Trevor Wainwright.
Thank you. We have minutes of our last meeting, which is held back on the 28th of October. Panel members, am I okay to sign those as a true and accurate record, please? All okay, thank you. Any members, any interest to declare on items as presented? Wouldn't expect we had any. No, that's great, thank you. I have no updates from myself as chairman. First substantive item is an item which I think accounts for about 40% of all crime in Norfolk, so very important to our residents, and that is fraud overview and update. And I believe, Nairi, you're the lead on this one. Over to you, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this paper covers off our Community Safety Partnership priority for fraud, which is all about working with our partners to raise awareness.
Now, do you mind just moving, angling your mic downwards more, pointing at you? That's great.
That way?
Should pick it.
Fraud and scam crime types and delivering preventative interventions to our local communities. So the report highlights that fraud accounts for over 40% of all crime nationally, and this continues to rise year on year due to advances in technology and the capabilities of artificial intelligence. Norfolk data informs us that there are frequently reported fraud types affecting our communities. We have high losses affecting a small number of victims, and the Norfolk victim demographic is not uniformed. It changes depending on the category of fraud. The partnership's delivery plan and outcome framework has been developed to meet the needs by local communities and reflects the objectives and outcomes of the overall Safer Norfolk plan priorities. So through increased awareness raising of fraud and scams, we can ensure our communities are aware and know how and where to report a concern. By providing training and resources to our workforces, we are increasing their skills and confidence to recognise fraud and scams. We're responding to community safety issues, utilising high-quality data analysis to inform our strategic responses, and we're delivering preventative interventions to make our communities safer, support victims and improve feelings of safety. Norfolk has a significantly older population compared to other areas nationally, with 25% of the population aged 65 and over. The partnership is aware of this and is committed to delivering targeted interventions and awareness-raising activities through a variety of channels. We understand that not everyone has access to the internet or a mobile phone. We have therefore partnered with local radio. We have printed materials, and we also deliver local community-based sessions. We're looking to expand this further through utilising our partners who are working within those vulnerable communities. For Norfolk's younger demographic, Friends Against Scams have recently developed their resources to target those in schools and youth group settings, and this is targeted at those aged 8+. And the partnership have recently shared this new development within our networks. And so too, we have also recently shared the Friends Against Scams app, which is available to download on your mobile phone. With this app, users can undertake training, and they can also now use a tool to check if a letter, an email, or even a website is a scam. For businesses, we have our business scam alerts, which is shared to over 1,700 local businesses, and we are continuing to develop this through our partners at the Business Improvement Districts to utilise events and conferences coming in 2026. For our partners, we have 71 sign-ups to a NASP newsletter. This is mostly leaders across various organisations who disseminate this information within their respective organisations. The partnership is looking to develop this further in early 2026 by reviewing gaps in those sign-ups and identifying opportunities to expand this. So, for example, the Norfolk magazine, district magazines and councillor updates. The report also recognises the new fraud reporting service, Report Fraud. The public campaign for this new service is imminent, and the partnership will be supporting our partners to promote this across Norfolk. The new service includes a dedicated contact centre and reporting tool for victims, which is simpler and more accessible. It provides clear updates to victims on their report. There is a quick-time analysis of reports with high-quality intelligence to secure more prosecutions, and a real-time disruption activity along with stronger prevention advice to protect people and businesses. And finally, the partnership monitors its success and progress through our outcomes framework. So this sets out what we want to achieve across this priority. We monitor and measure our activities to ensure that all age groups affected by fraud and scams and the service they are receiving are all supported within our support offer. As mentioned earlier, the partnership is confident in their responses to target all age groups through awareness raising, communications and prevention activities. And where there's a trend towards progress of our outcomes, we will consider continuing and upscaling those interventions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure panel members will have some comments or questions regarding this. Looking round. James, I've got you first, please.
Thank you for that report. I live in the most deprived ward in South Norfolk. It's all rural, there's no towns, just a few villages, and there's a lot of fields, and the demographic of the people is, as you described, 65 and over. Most of them don't have the internet. Those that do have it can't use it, and the rest of them can't get a signal, which includes me. So what are you doing to get the word out to these particular deprived people, really? And this can't be the only ward that's got the problem when you consider the size of Norfolk.
So when we're looking at our older demographic, as you rightly pointed out, they don't have access to the internet sometimes, and they're not that sure how to use a mobile phone. So what we're doing is we're utilising our partnerships who are engaging and working with those vulnerable communities, so the frontline professionals, be they carers, support workers, etc. And we're using that upskilling of the workforce to get that message out and share that across those communities. But we're also looking to expand in those community group settings, so finding out what's important, where does that older demographic spend some of their time, whether it be a local community group, library, etc. We're utilising that partnership to get that message out to those age groups.
James, you want to come back?
Yeah, oh, if I may.
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. We don't have any of that. We don't have libraries. We have a few community centres, and I've never seen anybody in a community centre talking about what we're talking about today. And it would be nice if they were included in your programme.
You just come to Gavin as well, please.
Yeah, thank you. Just in terms of just adding on what Nairi said. So she mentioned a number of different opportunities and kind of different assets to do the work in terms of raising awareness and providing support. I think that extends actually though across kind of all our work within, for example, the OPCC and working with partners to ensure that we do maximise every opportunity. And I want to give an example in terms of the recently recommissioned Norfolk and Suburb Victim Care Service. So we have a provider now called Catch 22, and it's a new service model, and as part of that model, There's an emphasis on volunteering and actually taking and building that kind of support network and going into local areas. I think the critical thing is going to local areas, understanding where people meet, and then actually proactively doing community engagement to raise aware of issues. Now, Norfolk and Suffolk Victim Care is obviously a victim support service, but we all know we want to prevent people from becoming victims or preventing kind of a repeat victimisation. So as an example, they will be going out, and obviously fraud is an area where they'd look to, you know, kind of work in terms of our campaigns, advertise the risk, but also basically offer the support and have those conversations with people, as you said, who aren't digitally enabled, actually, and digitally excluded. But interestingly, I'd like to take up the offer to actually think about your particular ward, actually, and have that conversation and actually test whether actually what we're doing in terms of victim care, whether that is actually reaching, and other initiatives, when it is reaching your ward. I think that's the critical thing. We can say, actually, we've put this in place. It's there to do that, but the critical thing is it actually happening? So if you'd be happy, it'd be good to actually touch base and actually look at how that's working in practice, and you know, what difference that is making within a ward like your own.
Do you want to come back in, James?
It would be very nice if you got in contact with me and I could give you all the details of all the groups and where they meet and what have you, so you could liaise with them. And I'm sure that goes for all the councillors sitting here, that they obviously know their areas and know what happens and what doesn't happen. But I would be very pleased if we were be able to put this forward.
Absolutely, yeah. Sarah, I've got you next, please, and then David.
Thank you. I'm from North Norfolk, and we have the oldest demographic in the UK, as you're probably aware. You said there was no age profile. Was that right for the victims across Norfolk? No common theme? Okay. Do you have a breakdown of by area? Is there a high proportion in anywhere in particular?
I would say it is spread across the whole of Norfolk. There are particular areas on the map which councillors are probably aware of in terms of other priorities. The demographic, I think public would probably think that it would be more rural areas who are targeted. It's not actually the case. It's sort of split between urban and rural. But yeah, you're right, there is no specific profile. It does very much differ depending on the category of fraud that we're talking about.
Okay, I mean, because to me the thing that jumps out is I've found that a lot of the time when we as councillors can put things into our newsletters. So if we're not actually attending a parish council meeting, you know, we send out newsletters and information to parishes. And I think that would be really good, because a lot of our older, in the villages, they either go to coffee mornings and chat amongst themselves, which is great because they spread the information well that way, or they read the notice board in the village. And if it's in the parish council minutes, then they'll see it on the notice board. So I think those are two ways of reaching some of those rural villages. I think it's interesting because I always used to assume that older people weren't as digitally mobile, flexible, whatever you like to call it, as younger people. I find a lot of them are actually way ahead of me in terms of their digital. They tend to be at one end of the scale or the other, don't they? Either very, very tech savvy or not at all. But I thought it was interesting this year to see more frauds targeting young people. And I think the other thing you were talking about, Gavin, is the importance of supporting people that have been impacted by fraud. And if there's any more work that we as councillors can do to get involved in supporting that. I remember there was a scam partnership, or, you know, scam training for us so that we could help people in the past. And that's all things that maybe we could get involved in again.
So I've got Liam wanting to come in and Nairi as well, so go on. I think Liam was kind of first, but yeah.
So really quickly, just on the kind of demographic questions, I just wanted to add a little bit of extra input on that. So for an older population and for a younger population, they're often targeted with different types of fraud, and I think that's a really important thing to draw out. So some maybe there's in an older population more prevalence of care and support needs and a mental decline, and the fraudsters are often looking to try and target and exploit that, which is quite sinister, and obviously that's the for that population, that's the trying to put the support around those people that protects them from that. And for a younger population, it might be the case that it's the first time that they're starting to have an expendable income, and then fraudsters are looking to target that with smaller transactions, the use of social media to get people to pay small fees. So there's kind of differing approaches from fraudsters depending on different demographics. So I think that's an important thing to know when engaging with communities, that we need to support all people stay safe from fraud.
And Nari, do you want to come back in as well?
Yes, thank you. It was just really quickly, just in relation to how councillors can help in their sort of parishes. You can actually sign up to be a Friends Against Scam ambassador, which, yeah, you can actually sign up, and you get some training, etc., and then you can go out and share that amongst your parishes.
And I've got, is it Emily, did you indicate as well? And then I've got Amanda as well.
Yeah, so just again to weigh in on the demographic and the spread. Fraud, it's such a small word for such a broad crime type. It covers so many different crime types, from changing the tag within a shop and then trying to pay a different price, all the way up to some really complex investment type scams. It's such a broad area, but we really are seeing that the locale and the spread, and also the age demographic, very much depends on the type of fraud. So one that will hit your area and your demographic is the most common one we're seeing for the elder generation is courier fraud, and that we do recognise we are targeting. We have a trigger plan drafted to make sure that when we have 3 or more occasions of this particular type of fraud, that the relevant sort of partner agencies and professionals are informed quickly, that they can then reach out and do the necessary to inform people in their groups within their reach. We also make sure that our communications are targeted towards that demographic. So last year, I don't know if you remember, last January, we had a really huge spike of courier fraud. There was a massive spate of it across January, not just in Norfolk, there was across 5 different counties. That person, we did arrest someone for that, and they were convicted in August, I believe. But because of, or through that, once we knew that was becoming a prevalent problem, we made sure that we got onto the radio and that we got into the local papers, rather than just going out on social media. We target our communications dependent on the type of fraud and the demographic that they're hitting. So that is something that we do keep in mind from an investigative point of view and a response point of view.
Thank you. And Amanda, and then I know David's waiting, so we come to...
Thank you. Just also, my colleague Susanna Armstrong-Cobb highlights in the Norfolk Community Safety Partnership newsletter all the information and the thematic information in relation to fraud. If you have a look at the last issue that was issued on the 8th, and that's gone out to all of our partners, all of our district councils, statutory partners, voluntary sector as well. We have all the information which Nadia has been talking about within the paper, about Report Fraud is Live, introducing the Friends Against Scams app, in addition to the Norfolk Against Scams partnership information pages that people can go to as well, but also about training that's available. So there's training available about how to spot a loan shark, and then on further training all about illegal money lending. So that context and information source is absolutely invaluable to the partnership to ensure that they can go to the local communities and talk to them about what is available.
Yes, thank you. I mean, there are definitely loan sharks out and operating within our communities, preying on the people who are some of the most vulnerable, who have the hardest to access cash in any other way. So it's important work. Now I've got David and then Tristan, I believe. David first.
Thank you, Chairman. Actually, your Vice Chairman has taken the thunder from me mostly. But I will just add, I'm sure that the councillors here and district councillors would be more than happy to get any sort of pamphlet that we could put out into our various, you do the libraries, so that's okay, but the pubs, local Tesco's or what have you, but something which catches the imagination, not just do you know a scam, or I'm not very good at sort of describing it, but something which someone sees and thinks, oh my God, like would you, some dodgy looking character, would you give this manual life savings, or something which attracts their attention and then guides them where to go? Because I won't tell you what it was, but I like to think I'm fairly switched on with computer and all that business. But I nearly got done out of £630 one day. They were so clever, and they just happened to mimic something which was going on with my family coming over from New Zealand. It all clicked, and I thought, my God, they do. I thought it was my daughter, and I thought, crikey, they owe this money. I better get it paid. And I thought, hold on, just a minute. It's 2 o'clock in the morning in New Zealand. So I rang the bank up, and they said, all the usual stuff, and they said, yeah, that's a scam, it's known. So if once they get a feel for what is wrong, I tell you, you think very hard thereafter. Now, I know you do an awful lot of good. Who is it? The one or two groups I have that comes up on Facebook every now and again. This is the latest scam which is coming out. And we need to get that out to people. And as you quite rightly say, a lot of people don't have the facility for being able to get this, but get it out into the pubs, get it out into the cafes, anything, garden centres, you name it, but get it out there so people see. But yeah, to me, it's got to be something which catches their eye. I don't care what it is. It could be pound notes being burnt or something, I don't know. But that's really the only message I have to give for this. And I'm sure you're doing a pretty good job as it is, because I get lots of updates from you on my website. So, but that's it. They're clever little sods. They really are. Hate them.
Who wants to come in on that one? Zoe. Or Inspector Zoe. Chief Inspector Zoe. Wasn't Chief Inspector Zoe.
It's getting longer.
Yeah. It gets harder to read the further I am away from you. You all keep moving back.
I don't know if Liam wants to come in on that point. I want to come on a point about young people, but were you...
I was only wanting to say, yeah, absolutely. We'll look to make sure you've got some resources. We've shared lots to get already, so we'll collate some and make sure that they get over to this group.
Zoe.
I was just going to talk very briefly about young people, and it's a broad piece that we are doing in relation to children who may be subject of crime as they go into adulthood. So a lot of the things that we are doing now are not specific to a crime type. They are all about building resilience, questioning behaviours, safeguarding behaviours in order to be able to, for them to look after themselves. So if I use that cyber example, which sort of translates over to phones and things as well, we will be teaching them to ask questions, to go back into the real world, to test, to make sure that they know who they're talking to, etc. Those sorts of behaviours actually translate quite well across to fraud, because as you rightly say, they are very clever, and at the point where we start putting out some comms around a certain methodology, they will switch it and they will work on some other. So although we do, all sorts of stuff with young people, and there's a specific piece around sextortion for children. Like I say, we just go back. So if you hear that there isn't anything specifically on fraud, it is. But it's more subtle than we would do. The other thing that I was going to introduce is Obviously, as the crime types change, and we are not the only interested party in fraud, because of course you've got the financial institutions as well. We do work with the financial institutions in order to be able to understand emerging themes, etc. And we have got a piece of work which I can't go into detail here, which is looking to our corporate partners in order to develop some, just to the members' point, some more bespoke stuff around actually where do people get that best information. So, for example, you've seen when you try and do transactions, the agencies will ask you certain questions. So it's you know, it's a team effort basically.
Yeah, I've noticed an update on my banking app recently. If you go to pay any new payee, are you paying a company? Are you paying an individual? Is it family and friends? You know, that sort of thing. And it does make you stop and think. And I think that's you know, that's going to help. Hang on, who am I paying for this? You know,
Yeah, absolutely.
Why don't they fit into this category?
Yeah.
And the reason is because they're not any of those categories. They're someone trying to con you. So.
And then it locks you out.
Yeah, then it locks you out. Indeed,
Yeah.
You get a call from the real bank. Tristan, I've got you next. Thanks, James.
Thanks, Chair. It's just with regards to a continuous theme about raising awareness. I'm thinking at my ward's Attleborough, we've got 2 key community events that happen during the week where hundreds of more older people attend. And I just wondered whether there's good comms between town and parish councils to identify those community groups that you can then go out and speak to. I don't know what a SCA ambassador is. I've got an idea of what one is, and I think there are people within those groups who probably, if it's what I think it is, would be brilliant SCA ambassadors. And I just wondered whether that information and that relationship between the town and parish councils was there.
Yeah, I'm happy to answer. It's certainly something that we've utilised before. So we, at the Norfolk Against Scams Partnership, our partnership group, used to have the Norfolk Association of Local Councils as part of the group. But I think that membership is something that might have drifted away. So it's definitely something that we'd want to reinvest in. Absolutely, the parish and town councils have a fantastic reach. So. So yeah, it's something that we've absolutely delivered on before, but would look to moving forwards.
Thank you. Right. Well, it seems to me that the nature of fraud generally becomes ever more, you know, it seems to evolve as quick as you find out about one thing, there's something else coming down the patch, and that those perpetrating it are very good at evolving what they do. And I mean, we've got to, I think, keep up with that some way in terms of how we react. I've literally sat in my late mother's home in a few months before she actually ended up in moving into care, and the phone rang, and you know, it was Microsoft support, which is interesting because she got no computer. And I spent over 10 minutes talking to this Microsoft support. And while he was doing that, he wasn't ringing anybody else. And I was obviously hands-free, and Mum was listening in and realising that, I mean, she wouldn't have got scammed because she got no computer. But, you know, I was aware of that type of scam. But just recently, and I get it regularly, emails to say that my storage capacity is going to be closed down or shut down, or it's always urgently contact them, urgently, you know, call this, click this link, famous one, click this link, don't click any links. And it's all the time, and it's ever getting more complex. And I think the repetitive message has got to be that we're evolving what we do to match the latest and what they're trying to do. And I think, you know, credit due to all the team and everyone who's involved in this Trading Standards Police, you know, but we need to get the word out to the individuals on the ground, because if, you know, if I see it on my email, then other people are seeing it on theirs, and actually it's very easy to think, oh gosh, I can't have my storage space run out on, you know, all my photos will be lost and whatever. Click the link. No, too late. You know, you've got, you know, so we've got to get the word out on every type of fraud, and actually fraud taking up 40% within those categories of what's happening within fraud. You know, it makes up for a large percentage of crime, and it's right that and proper that appropriate action is taken against it. We are asked to note the recommendation, but ask if there are any recommendations we wish to make. Councillor Sands, you've got a recommendation we wish to make.
I don't think it's a recommendation, but I wonder if it's worth approaching the EDP and see if they will do a weekly column on fraud updates. It's in their interest to find content anyway, and not everyone reads the newspaper, but not everyone also listens to the BBC News or other avenues as well. And it's just another way of getting the message out.
Hopefully that somebody from the EDP is listening in and they will have picked that up, and other newspapers as well, because again, certain demographic probably not using the internet for their news, but they still look to the newspapers, be they regional one like the EDP or local ones like the News and so on. Oh, did I see a hand up there? Yeah. Ah, yes.
I was just going to say, with the digital version, obviously you have to sign into CDP, which has a cost implication, so that's not always the best way because people are cut behind the firewall, but it's definitely something we can consider going forward.
Yes, yeah. The online content, unless you happen to be a subscriber, you see the headline and get the panic of what the headline is, but you don't get the story to know actually that something's been resolved. So I daren't call it clickbait, but you want to access it and find out what's going on. But this is in the public good, and actually the media, I think, also have a responsibility, because often they're media companies that are helping perpetrate the fraud, not least adverts on Facebook and other social media platforms for sales and so on. Any particular matters regarding this that we request more information for? I think they've said that there would be some provided to Councillor Easter, so thank you for that. And information out that we can disseminate across our all host councils, so that we can get that a wider net spread, and from then filter down through to parish council level. And like you say, a lot of people just catch up on what's going on locally on the parish newsletter that comes round, and these things get talked about, they get picked up in those articles and reported. And again, people all get one of those through the door in each village, so it's a way of getting that news and message out. So thank you for that. It's eye-opening, but I doubt it'll get any better any soon, because they're very, very clever people who seem to be these fraudsters. But thank you, just the same. We move on to another subject, which is a fairly heavy one, which is domestic homicide reviews. And because they're now called domestic abuse related death reviews. Liam, over to yourself, please. Page 20 for those following the agenda, item 6.
Thank you. So domestic abuse related death reviews, I'll try and use the acronym DARDAs if you try and follow that. They used to be termed domestic homicide reviews, or DHRs, as you've already highlighted. So the reason for that change in terminology is to make sure that there's greater inclusion of the types of death that could be included within this type of review. Sort of the domestic homicide review terminology implies a homicide is the focus, but domestic abuse related death reviews also do focus on suicides and other forms of death too. So just to cover off, the purpose of a DARDA is to review a death where there is some link to domestic abuse, and to try and identify the lessons that we can learn from that review, particularly for public sector organisations, but also as society as a whole, to try and prevent future deaths or future abuse from taking place. So I've listed the full criteria in the report, of course. This process, so domestic abuse related death reviews have to be commissioned by community safety partnerships. That process is managed by the Community Safety and Violence Reduction team within the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office. And there's a full process that's been provided in the annex of the report for you, which sort of details every step of the process. Over the at the start of 2025, we undertook some analysis of our published domestic homicide reviews to sort of tell us what sort of themes we'll be able to identify. So there was a predominance within within our local domestic homicide reviews of male perpetrators and female victims. That's a nationally expected theme. More recently, we've had 2 published domestic homicide reviews that have male victims. So it's just to counter to provide context to the point that there are male victims. That definitely is an issue that affects both genders, but there is a predominance towards female victims. In terms of age, we've got average ages listed within the report, but I think that this is an issue that affects. Similar to fraud, affects the entire demographic of Norfolk in terms of age profile, obviously with a counterpoint of its over 16s. In terms of the reviews and whether the victims or the relationship was visible to social services, whether people were aware of the abuse taking place. 3 out of 5 of the most recent reports had identified domestic abuse, and then all of those services were involved with some form of services to a greater or lesser extent. From those 5 reviews, there were 121 recommendations made, and they covered a huge space, but sort of really generally they covered things like recognising barriers to accessing support, training and awareness for professionals, professional curiosity and the importance of it in responses, the leadership and partnership working, making sure that we work together to try and safeguard, identifying risk factors and information sharing. So in those 121 recommendations that led to 227 actions, so of those 227 actions, we've completed 3/4 of them. So that it gives you a sense that we are as a partnership, making sure that we take action following our recommendations. The quarter that are not complete, they're a work in progress. We're sort of, they're not lost causes. They're things that we look to continue to work on, and some of them sort of have a longer lead in time to develop and embed practice, or so we can monitor the effectiveness of the activity that we've put into place. Just to give you sort of flavour of what those recommendations have led to. So some of our recommendations have talked about the Think Family approach, which is primarily focused within health, but also within the care, which considered the needs, risks and strength of the entire family network, not just the person that you're working with. So it's about that full family context. We've looked to implement an older people's domestic abuse and stalking and harassment risk assessment, DASH risk assessment. So the thing to know there is that the current DASH risk assessment, which we use to understand the risk people are facing who are experiencing domestic abuse, doesn't fit as well as it could for the older population. So we've added in a few extra questions based on best practice from elsewhere, and we're trialling that as a method to see if we can better identify abuse within older populations. We've been sharing the learning from our domestic abuse related death reviews through webinars. So we've had 6 sessions over the past maybe 18 months or so, with each of those having more than 100 attendees, or on average having more than 100 attendees. And we've also been, NIRI has been really productive in creating resources for professionals. So we've created a page which is listed in the report of 7-minute briefings or other forms of briefings on specific issues relating to domestic abuse. And we've provided information on victim services. And then the final thing I wanted to flag for your awareness from the report is that the Norfolk Community Safety Partnership is part of the Domestic Homicide Oversight Mechanism pilot, which has been running from the Domestic Abuse Commissioner's Office. That piece of work is essentially, it has been created to provide an oversight mechanism for assuring ourselves that recommendations are being implemented, but also they're being implemented effectively. So it gives us an ability to understand how well we're doing when we're in terms of implementing our recommendations. So it's a really valuable tool that our partners are buying into, and yeah, we've got much better understanding now about how we're doing as a partnership in response to domestic homicide reviews. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Liam. I mean, given the amount of recommendations that can come forward from a review, I mean, that generates a huge amount of work from each individual review. But it's great to hear that the learning from that is not just, go out and do these 100 and whatever recommendations, but actually that you've got a methodology in place for monitoring and making sure, because it's no good making 120 recommendations if 119 of them aren't followed, and one of those could have saved somebody else. It's really good to know that there's methodology in place to make sure that that's followed up upon and can really make a difference to individuals. Right, committee members, any comments, questions regarding this report, please? No? Well, I mean, it's something that we hope that you don't ever have to do any more of. But in the fact that you do have to do them, it's really important that, as I said, the methodology is there to make sure that the findings are implemented and that's backed up by, a process to make sure that happens. More power to what's being done by the team involved. It can't be easy work. As someone who lived next door to someone who was a very, very serious victim of domestic violence, but for the grace of God, she wasn't one of the people that needed investigating. But had she not been able to escape out of the back of her house and then come into my back door, she could well have been. So, I fully appreciate the severity of what goes on, and I think it's, the fact that you investigate and make sure there's learning for elsewhere is so vitally important. I think that's something we can probably all agree on as a panel. Are there any further recommendations or points that a panel wants to make? Sue.
Thank you, Chair. There's just one point that I'd like to make, and that is what is the impact of the current delayed court procedures having on the levels of domestic abuse, especially with regard to those who have separated or are pending divorce, where these processes are taking so much longer now. Thank you.
I'll give that a go. Obviously, we would want an efficient criminal justice system to be able to respond to domestic abuse, whether it's having an impact on increased rates of domestic abuse. I think the police would point out that they'd want to point out that there are mechanisms like domestic violence protection orders and notices that might help safeguard victims of domestic abuse, that they can use as powers to protect people. The court process does provide protection to victims as well. There is within the police within Norfolk there's a well-developed perpetrators provision approach as well, so that there's so we're able to provide resources to perpetrators to challenge their behaviour. As to whether I think that the question was about whether it's leading to more domestic abuse. I couldn't give you a definitive answer. I don't know if any of my colleagues can help me. It's a really tricky one to put my finger on.
Zoe, you want to go ahead?
What I would say, because I'm not an expert in that field and I'm not close enough to it, but if you want to ask a specific question, I can certainly go to the subject matter experts and ask that. Because if I'm honest, I don't know what priority has been put on those cases, but they are still a priority within policing. Just to pick up Liam's point around those the DVPOs, they are, how can I put this? They are actively looked at and they are actively sought, if that makes sense. And there's a lot of work which is going on around them, because of course we need to know whether they've been breached or not. and where there are breaches, they are actively pursued and they're talked about on a daily basis. So from a policing safeguarding perspective, we still have an eye on those high-risk cases. So I hope that gives you some reassurance, but if you want me to find a specific answer to that question, then I will.
A mixture of role there as well for district councils who are housing authorities to get victims moved away from perpetrators, or at least moved to where perpetrators don't know where they've gone to. So, and that in itself has a stress on the system, because housing is very much in demand, and I know that creates a high priority banding for people to get rehoused and move away. But yeah, that's it's all, you know, again, it's not just one agency's role, it's a team job between all, you know, councils and the police and court system. So, fair point, Sue, well raised, thank you. Okay, don't see any further recommendations. Oh, Gavin, you want to come in, please? Yeah.
Yes, just to follow on from Zoe's point. So in terms of, obviously, we know about the some of the backlogs in the criminal justice system, which is obviously what you're referring to. I think in terms of the criminal justice board that we have, was mentioned this morning, in terms of the victims group, I think there is, you know, what's clear is in terms of sort of the prioritisation that's given through kind of the process in terms of domestic abuse victims, actually. So whilst recognising that backlog, there's also recognition of the kind of the risk and the harm as well. So it is picked up. In addition to that, work is ongoing, for example, to just improve all aspects of kind of the criminal justice response in terms of domestic abuse victims. So in terms of the Criminal Justice Board, we've done a business case for a specialist domestic abuse court. There are potential challenges with that, but nevertheless, what we do try to do within the victim subgroup of Criminal Justice Board is to look at what is best practice across the country in terms of kind of the response and kind of addressing those DA cases within the criminal justice system.
So just for clarity, those learning events and advice that's given out after each review, they're not just circulated across Norfolk, they would go countrywide if it was relevant. And there's a method for that happening. I can see Amanda nodding. Amanda, come to you.
Just coming in there. Many of our domestic abuse cases and domestic homicide review cases, DARDAs, they're not just one county, Norfolk. They can involve multiple counties as well.
In terms of the volume, in terms of the team and the volume of DARDAs that we are currently managing. So Liam will correct me, I think it's 10 since June this year. I would say that's probably at an unprecedented level. So then, and in addition to the kind of unprecedented level of DARDAs, I'd suggest that obviously in terms of the management, in terms of the process, far more robust than it's ever been. That's a consequence of national expectation, which is right in terms of that, but also in terms of local expectation, in terms of ensure that we do actually conform to kind of best practice within our kind of management of DARDAs, and ensure that particularly, you know, we engage with the families and the process itself, as I said, is supportive to families as it should be. I just wanted to raise that because in terms of the team, we were probably set up to manage 2 to 3 domestic homicide reviews per annum. So I'll tell you that we're managing 10 since June. That tells you we are probably managing triple the amount of domestic homicide reviews or DARDAs that we have been previously. So, and that's just a fundamental point to take away in terms of in terms of how the team works and potentially how it kind of needs to work in the future.
That's quite, putting the context behind that, Gavin, and the fact that there's been that many compared to what you're normally geared up to deal with. I mean, that's quite a frightening stat to have. And obviously, as was said, each one, there's learning points on what's what. Is there any commonality across all of these cases, or are they all very varied? Or, if it's an unusually high amount, you have to sort of ask, is there any reason why? Amanda and then Liam, or Liam.
Sorry.
You could have both put your hands up together.
Just before we move on from the national point, I just wanted to flag some of the recommendations that get made are based on a national basis. So there might be recommendations for Home Office, other departments to look at really specific bits of detail that might improve the response to domestic abuse or bits of guidance. So there's also that kind of way that we're influencing national practice. In terms of the increased numbers, is something that had been experienced nationally and has been maintained. Part of it is national drive for looking at suicide-related domestic abuse as part of the homicide review process too. So that's one of the reasons within. And in terms of how are we identifying common themes? Yeah, absolutely. So some of the kind of analysis that I talked through a little earlier, that piece of work does look at some of the common themes. The new reviews that we have coming through, we make sure that we identify early learning at a really early stage and seek to take action on it, identify themes from within those reviews as well, and again put into place quick time pieces of work that look to respond to that. So it might be a piece of training around dual allegations of abuse, or it might be something kind of otherwise. But yeah, so we do make sure that we gather early learning, monitor themes, and look to put in things quick time.
Thank you. Amanda, you want to come in as well?
And I want to clarify as well, within Norfolk, reviews involving suicide have always been addressed, so that's not new to Norfolk. And it's something that we take we're committed to, especially we're working with families, because at the end of a DHR review is not the end of it for that family, and that's really important, and we need to make those thematic lessons learned and those lessons for those families to know what's happened afterwards. Because yes, you produce a recommendation, you put it on a website, but what next for the family? How do they know? How do they have the confidence in us as a partnership that we're taking those actions forward and we are doing them? And the actions have got to be smart as well. They can't be grandiose actions that don't have any meaning. What I would say is, yes, there are consistent key thematic areas coming through: professional curiosity, sharing information, multi-agency partnership working, and every single time we're getting them, we are highlighting and learning. But what we're also doing with our domestic homicide review chairs and authors is we are sharing the cases that have those lessons learned with previous domestic homicide reviews, so they can look to see, well, what's happened there if that action had been thoroughly reviewed, the action had been taken forward. Is there something that hasn't happened to make that happen again? And they are all very different. There is not one domestic homicide review that is homogenous. And that stock take, that test, that review is something that we keep building into everything that we do, because it's really, really important.
Given the workload, I mean, I just, thank all those involved, because it, as Gavin said, for three or four times the normal workload of what's going through, it puts a huge strain on those involved with. So thank you from the chair for what you're doing, and keep up the good work. Thank you. I can't see any further comments or questions coming from members. We are asked to make any recommendations to the partnership if we have any, but I think given the strain that they're under, extra burden from us probably wouldn't be helpful. And I don't know that from that there are any particular matters that we would request more lifting, etc. And this obviously encompasses some of that as well. Liam, it's your report. If you would like to present, it is page 32 in our agenda, folks.
Thank you. So Winter of Action is a Home Office campaign that was commenced on the 1st of December and finishes on the 31st of January 2026. It's a focus on town centres across England and Wales, and its focus is all about tackling retail crime, street crime, antisocial behaviour, and crime in the nighttime economy. it asks police and crime commissioners to coordinate the development of a delivery plan for their county, for their police force area, to respond to those crime types and make sure that they're doing all that they can to do so. The PCC for Norfolk asked the Community Safety Partnership team to manage this process on our behalf, and sort of gives another opportunity to highlight the effectiveness of the Norfolk Community Safety Partnership model. It being embedded within the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office, it links up really nicely. So in terms of how we went about developing our plan, we undertook some analysis which is detailed within the report. Essentially involved us reviewing crime data, but also intelligence from other sources. And we used that to identify where we should be focusing our attention. Wanted to give you some really high-level highlights from that report. So for retail crime, it talks about the police's retail crime strategy and how that will be embedded. Highlights the cooperation and leadership of the business improvement districts in responding to crime affecting businesses in their location, the importance of a visible police presence as a deterrent within towns and city centres, the targeting of prolific offenders, and it lists quite a few different operations as well that targets retail crime specifically. For antisocial behaviour and street crime, we talk about the Operation Service for. It highlights the wardens that are in to try and root out antisocial behaviour to try and root out antisocial behaviour and street crime in those areas. Finally, for the nighttime economy priority, we've highlighted pieces of work like Project Vigilant, which is led by the Business Improvement District's Goodnight Norwich campaign, which has been highlighted. Bystander training, which the Police and Crime Commissioner's Office has worked with the Susie Lampley Trust to promote. The LSAVI, so Licensee Safeguarding and Vulnerability Initiative, which helps nighttime economy venues be as safe as they can. And then that's been combined with robust licensing activity, provision of safe spaces, spiking awareness training. There's a really long list of activity that's being delivered across Norfolk. Not to want to list too much more, but I want to just flag that there is a really holistic approach across Norfolk in terms of the wider activity. Some of our serious violence duty funding has been directly targeting activities and working with young people, a group that we know to be of real relevance to these types of issues, and making sure that they have really positive activities for them. Then I also wanted to highlight the in the drug and alcohol treatment work as well. There's been a focus on drug testing on arrest, and that use of trying to identify those with alcohol and substance use needs and provide and signpost them or get them into support services. So that's what I wanted to highlight in terms of delivery. The comms has been a really important angle of this because it's about a reassurance piece that all of this work is taking place to the public, that we're responding to community safety issues across Norfolk. And that Norfolk should be a safe place because of these interventions that are being provided. So yeah, that's introduction.
Thank you. Now it's due to run according to the plan until the 31st of January. So I mean we're a little bit sort of premature of that. Will there be a follow-up with sort of outcome statistics and you know? I mean, give us a flavour of what's going on, but I'm obviously looking towards what difference has it made on the ground. Obviously, I see a real difference in the centre of King's Lynn from when I was a youngster to when I'd now go and pick my son up and his mates as a dad taxi at whatever time they leave the pubs and things. A lot less people around. I think there's a real reluctance, from some young people because of worrying about drinks being spiked and getting in fights and all this sort of thing, that they sort of feel that the numbers are not like they used to be. And don't get me wrong, there was trouble back then and there's trouble back now, but I think, the sort of awareness of things like drinks being spiked is that, the nighttime economy seems to be struggling, and you sort of back that up with a number of clubs and things that have disappeared over the years. And if it's not a safe environment, people won't want to go, and the nighttime economy will fail. So, we need projects like this to help reinvigorate the nighttime economy, because it's only right and proper that those young people go out and have a fun time in a safe environment. So will there be sort of directed outcomes where we know exactly what interventions there's been once it's complete, and the learning from that, will we then be able to, is there, I'll say funding to carry it on, but would it be carry-onable within the normal operations of what we do?
So in terms of outcomes, we have a reporting system, so we're reporting back to the Home Office on the activity we have delivered. So we are capturing outcomes, absolutely, and that's something that we can report back in at a future meeting if that's what's wanted. Absolutely. In terms of, now I've lost track of your other question.
Whether, I mean, this has been a sort of targeted campaign from 1st of December to 31st of Jan. Will the sort of learnings from that and the rationale behind it, can that be carried on? Because you don't just want the nighttime economy to be safe when they're concentrated effort from December to January. You want it right, carry on right through to the summer months when there'll be perhaps more people about on the streets and so on.
Yeah. So this is the second iteration of a Home Office piece of work. We anticipate that would be something that they want to continue. So yes, I think that it's something that we're going to be asked to do again. I think, if I'm so bold as to speak a little bit on behalf of our community safety partnership, that they've found it a really helpful thing to get this collation of what activity is going on, and then the kind of follow up how effective it's been piece of work. So that I think that there'll be a want to kind of maintain some level of coordinated view about activity in the nighttime economy, but beyond that as well, retail settings too. So yeah, I think that it's absolutely something we're going to maintain. Some of this work is work we already had in train. It's not something that we've stood up as just for this. Just for the winter of action, it's work that we wanted to drive through, and you've used this winter of action as a kind of a vehicle to communicate about it.
Excellent, thank you. And it's something that partners right across the piece can help with. CCTV coverage provided by the district councils, street wardens from the business improvement districts and so on. So there's lots of strands to this, and we need all of those partners all working together. Chief Inspector Zoe.
Thank you. Just by way of reassurance, I mean, it's very clear from the neighbourhood policing guarantee that this is a real focus through the Safer Town Centres. So we've had a lot of conversations with partners, to Liam's point, where we've used this as a lift-off point and where we've restructured. Rather than doing it as something else, we've started to restructure so that we can work with partners in order to meet whatever comes this year.
I think those areas where they've been identified for this programme, Norwich, Kingston, Great Yarmouth, etc. I think those local to those areas understand their own localities and know the problem areas, and I think the authorities involved all know the areas too, and actually making a difference to places like, and I'll say it, Kings Lynn bus station. We were trying to encourage people to use public transport on one hand, and then we've got a bus station full of youth and the smell of a certain substance that would be off-putting to anybody. So you know, if it can be targeted, that obviously helps. And your colleague next to you, Zoe, who's Karen? Sorry, I can't see around.
So I'm from Norwich City Council, and we were all commended as part of the summer activities that we took place. And I think the strength of that is the fact that this is what we class as business as usual. We are just looking to extend what we normally do, and making sure that we are publicising some of the things that are helping to keep those town centres safer. Where it works, we're looking to extend that and do more of it, constantly learning from what's worked, what the public's really valued. So that for me is one of the things that we will look to continue to do, is learning from what the public has valued.
Yeah, I think that awareness is really helpful, Karen, because the wrong-uns who are out to do no good, actually, if they know that there's a target, you know, in a locality where they often go, I mean, it could just move it somewhere else, but at least it dissipates it for those businesses that are surrounding that area. And I mean, I cite the example of King's Lynn and the bus station. Those businesses that are surrounding there, they have to endure the fact that that's a place where youth congregates at all times of the day and night. So, yeah, absolutely so. So thank you for that. Any other comments, questions from committee members? Tristan, please.
Thanks, Chair. It was good to see the reference to safer street wardens on page 39 and the benefit that they provide. From a Breckland point of view, we're definitely looking at this as business as usual, because residents, local businesses see the benefit of that. But business as usual has got a price, so obviously funding is key to ensure particularly that those safer street wardens remain in place. The fact that initially they were Thetford focused, but are moving into Dereham as well because of the winter of action, and the fact that other town councils can now see the benefit of this initiative. So thank you.
And Tristan, in your locality, are they being funded by business improvement districts, or is that local council picking up the costs?
That's a mix between Breckland Local Council and the PCC at the moment.
Liam, yeah.
So I mentioned it previously, but I want to kind of reiterate the point that a really important part of this work is about communicating to the public about the work that is taking place. I want to commend Susie's work, who's sitting behind me, which has been about trying to deliver that, and she's developed a really positive way of doing that, which I think she refers to it to me as Stars of the Week, which is sort of highlights some of the really positive practice that's been taking place in Norfolk during the Winter of Action period. So I'd kind of ask colleagues to please take a look at, I think it's our social media, not a social media tech savvy person at all, but I think that's what they call it. So yeah, please do take a look at that and try and promote that activity.
Excellent, thank you. Just looking at Sarah, please.
Thank you. I think it's great to see, the work that's being done and what have you. Obviously, you have to target certain areas. You can't go everywhere. I think it's just important to make sure, and I'm sure you're probably doing this through maybe things like Stars of the Week, that the youngsters that come in from the areas, in particular, it tends to be the younger people going for the nighttime economy, that they are getting that communication and that message about what they can be doing and ways they can be keeping themselves safer when they come into the smokes, and understand, particularly things like spiking. It must be a big concern, particularly to their parents too.
Karen, you want to come back in?
Yeah, so one of the things that we have done in respect of that is there was recently a campaign that went out through the schools in terms of how to keep yourself safe, because we've seen an influx of young people into the Haymarket, Hayhill area in Norwich on a Saturday in particular. So we wanted to make sure that working with the Targeted Youth Support Service and the schools and the safeguarding officers, that we got the message out about making sure that your phones are charged, that you've got a method of getting home safely, that you look out for your friends, that parents are actually playing their part in keeping their children safe. They know who they're with, where they're going to be, and just reinforcing all of those safety messages. And I think that's something that we can look to sort of move on to potentially the nighttime economy as well. We could look at what how we could adapt that. Obviously, you won't have the schools to be able to take part, but potentially colleges, university, and how we can get that same message about looking after your friends, taking responsibility for your personal safety, and getting that message out for the nighttime economy.
Yeah, absolutely so. And yeah, the fact that that youngsters do like to just go out and hang out, don't they? You know what I mean? And those that aren't age where they'll get into pubs and clubs, but they still like to hang out in groups, and it's making sure that they, stay safe and actually avoid those people that'll probably be out to, prey on them for whatever they're up to. So the interventions are sound as far as I can see. Thus far, I think the only recommendation perhaps we would have would be that the stats and figures, if you've got them, can come out to us at a subsequent meeting. That would be really helpful, Liam, thank you. Because knowing that you're doing a good job will, I think, encourage those partners that are involved to keep up their side of what's being done, and hopefully deliver a safer environment for our young people, but a more pleasant environment for everyone else. It's about that balance between everyone using a space. I don't see any further comments or questions from committee members. Is there any further recommendations we wish to make to the panel at this point? No, in which case, thank you all very much for that. We will move on, if we can, to our final item, which is on page 46. It's our forward work programme. And Becky, can I ask you to speak to us on this one, please?
Yep, thank you, Chair. Members will see the forward work programme. There are different reports for the next 2 meetings, so some quite detailed information that is coming to the committee for the next 2 meetings. Date of the July one is to be confirmed. I have made a note of the request about stats and figures on the last item, so I'll liaise with Liam and the team about what that looks like and how to effectively report that back in. And I've also made a note of bringing the DARDA report back in 12 months' time for an update on that. So if there's any other items that the committee wish to include or put on there for consideration, I'm happy to discuss that and put that on the forward work programme, Chair. Thank you.
Thanks, Becky. As has been said, we've got items for our next 2 meetings, which are the next ones in the programme. A date for the July meeting is still to be confirmed, but I don't think that's too far away off of having a permanent date. Anything anyone wishes to think about including at this point in time? No? And I just normally go to Gavin, because Gavin's normally the font of all knowledge on anything we might want on the agenda. No? That's okay. In which case, thanks everybody for your involvement and attendance. Some very broad-ranging subjects and some real, I think, eye-opening subjects in terms of what you're doing, and keep up the good work, everybody. Thanks very much. Meeting closed.